and welcome to another Reefside Radio. We have a special guest today, a person that I've known for quite a bit of time. And as always, we have co-host Chris Daniels. Chris, before we get into this gentleman right here, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Life's good. Everything is moving in a big kind of send it energy.
Okay,
yeah.
Just send it energy.
We're launching
Big
some new.
send it energy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Got a big surprise this weekend, which should be fun. And yeah, we're trying a lot of new products and things with the lab and memberships and changing rooms. So it's a really creative week. It's been fun.
That's good. It's a good way to wrap up the summer and then move into the fall with some creativity. We also got some amazing events and engagements happening this week. So I'm going to talk about a couple of those. But I want to introduce everybody to Hilmon Sorey. Hillman, how are you doing today?
I am fantastic. You know me, I'm pretty much fantastic every day.
You are kind of fantastic every day.
There's like, 364, I'm fantastic. Then there's that one day that I just let it all hit.
Yeah.
But nobody sees me on
Nobody
that
sees
day.
you that day.
Yeah.
That's the day you're in the dungeon. You cry a
Cooking
little
up
bit.
all kinds
Exactly.
of things. That's my world domination day. But,
Exactly.
we don't share that publicly.
We don't share that. Nobody sees that.
That's right.
Nobody
That's
sees
right.
that. But if you do know Hillman's he lights up a room when he comes in, and I can say that in a lot of ways because as soon as we met, I can tell not only did you have a lot of energy but intention in terms of stuff that you do. So I always appreciate it. But if you don't know Hillman, Hillman's Transplant. His family is down here, but he's come down to Miami from the Bay originally, and has done a lot of work both in angel investing and starting up a bunch of different companies. And would love to dive into a couple of them because you've had a lot of work in the nitty gritty on the ground, like actually moving.
Had.
Sales.
What do you mean
had
Right now.
I stay on the ground.
Stay on the ground.
I just showered
man.
for this podcast, man.
See, he cleaned up for us. It's
I know where I am. I had to come, looking proper.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
We appreciate
Yeah.
it. It makes these things bearable. No, but you and it comes out when you speak about things. So it definitely want to dive into a little bit of that. But I did want to ask kind of a question. You are in the nitty gritty now?
I
But
am
you're
the
also-
nitty-gritty.
You are the nitty gritty. That's how you define yourself. But you also are in a kind of different place than you were previously when you were kind of doing that work kind of in the startup scene and on that side. You
Yeah.
miss that side?
Well, I still feel that I'm in it. Here's how I define that, right?
Yeah.
So nitty gritty, I look at as kind of being an operator, right? It's like, are you part of the day-to-day, either responsible for the building of a product, the delivery of a service, the procurement of funds, whether that means fundraising, revenue, any of those sorts of things, or operationally ensuring that an entity and the people associated with that entity and its stakeholders are thriving, right? So in that sense of in the nitty gritty, I feel like I never left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess I say that to say that there are folks who have become investors where investing is their thing. And I don't mean to take anything away from all of the operational things that are involved in investing. It's a little less nitty, but still is gritty, right? But
Being an investor is
higher
hard.
level of dust.
It's so hard.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, it really can be. When you got other people's money, when you're
That's-
responsible for a rate of
yeah.
return, like that's no joke.
Little
You know what I mean?
anxiety
Yeah, I don't want that responsibility. But so, in the work that I do as an individual, whether it's from an angel perspective, whether it's my partnership in a VC, whether it's what I really consider my latest founding endeavor, which is The Source, right? That's a startup. We're 18 months old. You know what I mean? We have all the same pains and all the same challenges. I'm fortunate to have a partner who's had 30-year history of success here in South Florida, in Ted Lucas. And fortunately, I've had, 25, 30 years of some success myself. But we are still starting a new enterprise, and it's got all the fits and starts that anybody else does. We're not a tech organization. We are tech focused, but we are not building a tech product. So still doing that thing. And then also, Closed Loop, I still run as a go-to-market strategy firm where I'm working with companies that range from early stage startups all the way through really, unicorns. I'm fortunate enough to have a number of unicorns in our portfolio. Awesome. And there I'm rolling up the sleeves and helping them execute on the things that they need to do. So I feel really fortunate in that I've got a lot of different lenses in this economy and also in this world, whether it's the challenges of a startup founder, whether it's the challenges of being a funder or an investor, whether it's the ecosystem builder part, whether it's the services provision part, or whether it's just the ideation and working with startup founders to help them get to where they need to go. So this is why I have no hair. It was a trade-off, and I said, okay.
You know, we all appreciate your sacrifice that you it's hard. It's hard. But I will say you the source, you hit the ground running. Coming into
big
Miami,
splash.
big splash.
Thank you.
And it was in all of those different areas, because at first, you know, it was a question around like, oh, they're going to work with startups and that's it. And it's like, no,
Nope.
The source took a very, very holistic approach in terms of how it came into the Miami scene. And why? Did you feel like that was necessary to do? Because as you said,
Pure foolishness.
very difficult and a lot to take on at the same time. Why did you do that?
Because we can, and I say that with humility. I don't mean that from an arrogant perspective. What I mean to say is that if you think about how you go from the conception of an idea into its execution, whether you're a writer, whether you're a singer, which I know absolutely nothing about, although I have a microphone. Don't dare me.
Rip.
Look,
You have a little reverb on this thing here.
the podcast, he was talking about his voice, and I'm like, hey, look, man, I don't know who's been bumping your head up about your voice and everything else.
It doesn't take much.
It sounds nice to talk
one
to.
pump and he's already ready to go. But you know, these people who are foolish enough to chase their dreams, to chase their ideas, it becomes something you feel compelled to do. And this is something that I'm always looking for in founders and looking for in folks that I work with. This is something that is evident in the two of you and all the work that you've done in this ecosystem. It's just that you don't wake up saying, okay, what is the thing I can do that transactionally is going to afford me a certain amount of money or get me a certain amount of prestige or a certain number of likes. The people who do that, they wash out. It becomes very transparent. They go away. There's very little authenticity behind it. And when it gets tough, they really just don't have the grit, to stick with that term, to stick it out, right? Because it's like, oh, I didn't know I signed up for all this mess. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But when you feel compelled and when you have seen a vision and you've had a background that has afforded you the opportunity to really see lanes and really see where there are blind spots or opportunities or things that you can capitalize on, you wake up, if you sleep, you wake up in the middle of the night feeling like, I got an idea. And you reach for the phone or you reach for the pad or you do the thing. And then you wake up in the morning and you're like, I got to go do the thing. And so I can't say, you know, Ted and I spent about a year kind of dancing together. What I mean by that is like, we did not know each other before we connected. I didn't even know who he was. I always joke. I was like, you know, I was on the West Coast and I was all down with West Coast hip hop. I didn't know what was going on down in Florida. You know what I mean? So I wasn't like a fan and like trying to chase him down. Yeah, he gets a lot of that. You know what I mean? And he didn't know me. You know, I have a certain reputation, not nearly the scale of his out here, but I have a certain reputation in San Francisco, and there are people who know me there, and so, you know, that sort of thing. So we came to each other not really knowing each other's backgrounds, which allowed us to just really be vulnerable, and me to kind of say, here are the things that I saw in San Francisco that I would love to be in a place to change, but I could not change in San Francisco because it's so... it's really fixed and it's working. You know, there's no problem out there. There's no perceived problem in the masses out there, right? I came here and I started seeing some of the things that were transitional in San Francisco that I think if they had a chance to take back, they might have done a little bit differently around the inclusivity of the local community, around ensuring that we kind of organically build up around some of the integrations that San Francisco and the Bay Area do really well. Excuse me. With respect to integrating with colleges and universities and these public-private partnerships and all of that, correlating to innovation. And I was sharing all of this context with him. And of course, Ted was saying, you know, what we see here, Hillman, pretty simple, is that housing has gone through the roof. People who have lived there their whole lives in these communities are now being displaced from these communities. People are saying, yeah, let's bring the tech. And then there are folks who are like, well, what about me? Where'd my job go? And something needs to be done to ensure that folks who have history here and roots here and want to remain here still have an opportunity to be here. And you can't execute on that mission without being holistically involved. you have to touch education. You have to touch investment. You have to touch entrepreneurship, not just for tech, but for small businesses, and allowing small businesses who are here to actually have exposure and opportunity to integrate innovative technology, even if the core of your business is not tech, because tech touches everything. You know what I mean? So it could not, I think that maybe we could have probably picked a slice and gone after that, but because we kind of made announcements and you know, we did a grand opening, we did that intentionally, we were kind of like, let's see what comes, and what comes we will react to and be able to leverage our network and our expertise and our resources to be able to make happen. And a lot of it came really quickly, which to me just kind of showed that there was an opportunity. And that folks actually beyond us were very excited about being able to engage. And that's something that I have to say, I appreciate you saying that it looks like, you know, we hit with the ground running with a splash. That's not we have a fantastic team in the source and we have a fantastic network, but that is a community effort that has come behind and come within everything that we're doing in a way to really create that ripple effect. It's not a top down, it's not an inside out, it's truly kind of like what I think is magical about Miami, which is just that it becomes this interwoven fabric of collaboration.
Yeah. And Chris, like, you talk all the time about like how trying to find, because you talk to a lot of solo founders and how like trying to find somebody that could be a proper like co-founder coming together is like so vital. And I hear that a little bit in that conversation where you're like, there's these two people of really great skills, have a conversation of alignment, and then they're able to move this thing forward. And
I want to comment on that. You know, I think one of the reasons, first, it is very difficult. I think that it becomes more difficult when you don't know what you're looking for. We were talking about relationships a little bit earlier, you know, but before we started the podcast. And at least personally, I found in the woman I married, the person that I actually knew I was looking for. I'll tell you very ironically, I sat down maybe 3 years before I ever met this person, and I'm not a huge journaler. I would love to be, and I'd love to pretend that I am, and I have fits and starts with it.
I mean,
like,
you don't wake
up
each morning, you say,
and just pontificate. I aspire to be that person because I do think it's a very powerful thing to do.
Definitely.
I respect that, and just for some reason I don't. And I try. My birthday is December 29th, and you know that's just right into New Year's, so I don't make resolutions. But every birthday, I'm like, let me get a new moleskin, and just moleskin, whatever. Nice, I don't even know what it's called. That shows you how deep I am on it. But I did intentionally sat down at one point. This is about 3 years before I met my wife, and I wrote down like my perfect person. And this is what's interesting about this. Sometimes people think, and people do this for a lot of things, right? You can talk about vision boarding, you can talk about, you know, manifestation, call it whatever you want to. There's something magical about how it works. I don't know how it works, I just know it works, right? I've never been good at like the specifics, like the physical specifics or the, you know, like the house that's got the wraparound porch and I don't see the world that way. Even though I'm a very visual person, kinesthetically is kind of like how I think about life. So it was all of this around the feelings that I would have, like the feeling I would have when we talk, the feeling I would have when I come home and see her, the way we would discuss and manage our life. This whole thing. I did 3.5 pages. This is a lot of writing for me, right? And then we met, you know, got together, whatever. We got married. Then she moved into the house, and I found it and I read it. I did never open it again. It's not like I just sat there as like affirmations of like, I seek a woman who makes me feel whole. Like, I didn't do all that. Nothing wrong with it. That's your jam. Go for it, but that's not me. But I found this thing and I read it and I sat on the side of the bed. I was like, this is insane, because to a T, as I got to the end, I started adding some things. I was like, curly hair. Maybe has an accent. I was like, you know, blah, blah, blah. To a T. This is who she is. So I handed it to her, and she's like, what kind of creepy thing is this you're writing about me? And I'm like, I wrote it 3 years before I met you. I say all this to say, sorry for the long way to get here. When you know what you're looking for, it's easier to find. So often, and I knew what I was looking for in a partnership or in an opportunity or in this next step in moving to Miami. I knew why I did this. It was very intentional. And I knew what I wanted to do, and therefore I knew what I needed to be surrounded by. Ted, same thing. Ted had been trying for years to figure out who he could partner with, who had like the tech chops and maybe knew a little bit about investment and finance in that realm, where he knows so much about the local economy and local community and everything here, and has so much passion around business and all that. And so he was looking, I was looking. And then we found each other. So it was not just coincidental, like, oh, we just had a couple drinks. It was like, wow, you're great too. Let's do this. It wasn't that. So when founders are looking for a co-founder, or even when you're hiring, you know, I go through this whole rubric that I've been working with a whole bunch of startup founders now who are looking at their first hire, whether it's a chief of staff, whether it's a CPO, chief product officer, whatever it might be. And I'm like, okay, it's great that you know the job description, but there's way more to a person than that. How are you going to know this is the right person if you haven't set about identifying this before you have the bias of having the person sitting across from you who you're just really wishing and hoping is going to be the thing, right? So I think that doing that advanced preparation is an exercise that gets you a whole lot closer to being able to draw into your circle the types of things that are going to benefit you.
100%. I find that there's one kind of group of founders that's like, can you help me find a CTO? I need a co-founder. And you're like, sure, what are you looking for? They're like, someone with technical skills. Right. And you're like, whoa, all right. That's a pretty big
Thank
couple
you so much
people in there.
Let me get to work. Yeah.
And then there's another kind of group of founders maybe have been through that before, and they're like, I'm looking for someone with this specific experience that worked in these 3 companies, that was at this director level or this specific level, that is from this specific place, that they have access to that network. And it's like, oh, you're thinking bigger picture of how these puzzle pieces fit together.
That's right.
And then when a startup's fundraising, you see it maybe on the pitch deck where it's like the founder and then some co-founders, and it's like, that's my friend from college. They have no skills relevant to this thing, but they're a co-founder because that's all I had around me, which, you know, you got to do what you got to do. But versus when you have, you know, 2 superheroes where it's like, oh, wow, this makes so much sense why these 2 people are building this. That's so much more compelling.
Absolutely. And this is why you get things like the PayPal Mafia. You get like, there are folks that, since I've been at this for quite a period of time, I've got pods of folks that I've consulted with or advised that have gone on to found other companies and exits because you know how you work together. You know that, like, if I tell you that's a stupid idea, it has nothing to do, I'm not calling you stupid, and we can go at it and then go back to peace and execute on something and move in step. You know, all of those things are so absolutely critical.
100%. Do you find that there's a tale of 2 founders in Miami? And what I mean by that is,
I
like that. That sounds like a good book.
Yeah.
He did it.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
It's such a good. I love the phrase. It's such good framing.
That's great. What do you mean?
I've seen for a couple of years, maybe the past 5 years, is there is a founder that is born and raised in Miami or spent a lot of their life in Miami, either stayed here or went somewhere else, but the majority of their life has been Miami based, and they're in a Miami, you know, based community. Their family's here, their friends are here, their high school friends, whatever it is, you know, and what I find with them is they're struggling to break into more of that New York, San Francisco investor community, product community, technology community, because they're born and raised in Miami and they have a certain, you know, network and connection here. And then on the other side, you have, normally it's some type of exited founder, or they had some venture that they raised for, and then they came to Miami for the lifestyle or for the taxes or whatever you want to say.
All the things.
And they have a huge network of kind of the Silicon Valley, New York investors, product people meet their co-founders, the ex-product lead from Stripe, stuff like that. And I find that those 2 groups have significantly different challenges. One, you know, with the local Miami founders, it's like, hey, I'm looking for people that are deep into the technology and startup scene, and I just don't really have that in my crew. Versus the other group is looking for where is kind of more of that personal community in Miami, because a lot of my friends live in New York, or I'm back and forth every week or something like that. And I don't know, I've just experienced that and found that the past couple of years. Do you ever see that?
Absolutely, everywhere. And you spelled it out precisely. And what's interesting about that is that there's not a lot of cross-pollination between the 2 groups. You know what I mean? And I think that there is, if I can speak plainly, I think that there is a little bit of arrogance from the standpoint of the San Francisco founder, the New York founder, you know, Boston. You know, there are a couple other cities around the globe that have a much more mature ecosystem from the standpoint. When I speak about maturity, I mean like, there's university maturity in computer science. There is the maturity of the marketplace from the standpoint that there have been exits in those particular regions. And from those exits, a lot of people make a lot of money. And then those people who make a lot of money decide to reinvest, and they decide to go become founders. And often it's with some of the people that they worked with before, like we just talked about. And you kind of this kind of builds the thing. And Miami just has not gotten there yet, just because of it's younger. You know what I mean? We just haven't had the opportunity yet. I have no doubt that we will. So there's a little bit of arrogance around, like, I come down to Miami and like there's just not that deep tech scene. There's not that deep engineering kind of ethos. And there aren't places where I can go where I'm just like constantly stimulated by a whole bunch of people working on AI. I mean, if you think about like San Francisco, you've got this just density for better or worse. And it is better and worse in both. It is both, right? Of just people who are working on the same stuff. And you can sneeze and find somebody right now who's working on an AI project. And I don't mean like agentic AI at this high level, but like they're down here with LLMs and building really interesting stuff and MCP servers and yada. Not that this is not interesting, but they're deep in the code. You know what I mean? And we don't have a lot of that here. And what's so interesting, because I still I still have two companies that I'm working with that are in two companies that I'm founded in that are based in San Francisco. And so I do a lot of work with the Silicon Valley community, and I'm still plugged into that all day long. And it's just so interesting that they'll talk about, like, they're always like, oh, you're in Miami, because they see me like, in the winter I come in, I'm wearing something like what you did. Exactly. I really floss it up, like, when it's December and January, just to be like,
you have to. You have to. You need to let everybody know this is not a fake background.
No.
This is my real
that
backyard.
Palm tree swing, like that's a real thing. You know what I mean? But that's not a green screen. But they will always say like, oh gosh, I just love to be down there. It's just I can't build a company down there. That's like what they find. That's what they say on the back end. And a lot of it has to do with engineering. You know what I mean? Then on the converse, there is a language, and I am happy to have escaped this to a certain degree. What I love about Miami is that when you go out socially, whatever your social thing is, whether it's the coffee shop, I don't club, but like I'm assuming, I don't know what people talk about in clubs. So I'm not even going to pretend. I'm going to sound like an old idiot when I say
people
in the club when they're talking about the exactly right, exactly. See there,
we're not talking.
See,
none of us are.
I'm just going to stop short on that one. But like wherever you go, you can have a really rich conversation on a whole bunch of things. You know what I mean? And that's one thing that I love about Miami. And we don't just only talk about the tech. And I don't think there is really a place where you would just really only be talking about the tech. Even like our really tech, even our hubs that we consider like really immersive, there's still such well-roundedness in that immersion. And we've got the benefit of the fact that most of our practitioners come from all over the globe. You've got Latin America, you've got Europe, you've got the Middle East, you've got, the Caribbean, you've got everything. And all these people are here doing stuff and all working together. So it's richer from that vantage point, and it is lacking in that context of a giant concentration of very deep tech-oriented engineers. Now, here's what's interesting about saying this, as I'm saying this out loud. I got in a whole lot of trouble last year when I was just quoting Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, where I said that, if you've got kids, I would not put them in computer science classes or not teach them how to code. I would instead teach them robust English and logic, and they will be just fine, because most of the coding is going to be taking place using AI in the future. Now, I said this like a year and a half ago. I'm no genius. I was quoting him. I'm smart enough to quote smart people, right? Got roasted on this stage. They're like, oh, yeah, what this is what everybody's saying. What are you selling? What kind of stupid workshop are you selling? Hillman's English.
Hillman's
English to code for dummies. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, just sit tight. So now everybody who knows anything is basically saying by 2026, like, really rendered irrelevant coding. People who code. That's not to say, don't get mad at me. Don't write into these guys. It's not their fault. These are my own opinions. But like, that's not to say that coding is not going to be necessary and that there won't be different levels and that it won't move. Like, everything migrates, right? But having to be a classic engineer who has mastered a whole number of coding language in order to start a company that is economically viable to become a unicorn or billion-dollar organization is no longer going to be required. So this is going to be the transition, and this is taking place right now, into what it means to be a startup founder, which, I know you're about to say something, but fortunately levels the playing field if you know it's here.
100%.
Yeah,
like that's the conversation that, like, I think the last point is really, really important, where we're having a conversation about starting companies, not about like holding up legacy enterprise systems. Like, we're having completely two different conversations. And if what we're trying to do is have more people who have amazing ideas but don't have the ability to execute them and democratize that access to that, that's what we want.
That's it.
That's what we want. And so there's two separate conversations that are happening, which is most of the people that hear you say that is like, actually, I'm an engineer and I'm doing all this super hard stuff. AI can't do that.
I'm an engineer and I matter.
And I matter. Exactly. No, we don't do callbacks here. but to that point, exactly. It's something that I think we kind of mash together in a conversation. We don't necessarily bifurcate them.
I think that is a very astute observation. Completely agree. Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot of COBOL out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
oh my God.
People have no idea how many networks are sitting here riding on COBOL.
I got a friend who's been doing that for like 10 years.
I bet he or she is rich.
Yeah. They're a software engineer in Chicago, and they're just COBOL.
Killing it.
Yeah.
Killing it.
Ever since Y2K, man. Like, you know? Yeah,
oh, man. You know what we just had a conversation about? PHP.
Oh, yeah.
Last week,
Wow.
Just crazy stuff. It's like that site is still held up by WordPress. And so to do this integration, we have to do PHP. Millions of people going through it. It's just crazy. Yeah. It's crazy.
So that's a thing.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
And it will always forever be a thing.
Yeah.
And there will always be
tech debt for billions, trillions of dollars of tech.
Trillions of dollars of tech just held up by, duct tape and glue.
That's right.
And it's forever going to be like that until we get to a certain point where it gets a lot easier to phase out of that. Where the transition cost from that legacy system to something new isn't so high that people will be prohibited from doing it. So, everybody still has jobs.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting too is that a lot, in my mind, a lot of the deep technology is going to swing back towards infrastructure and swing back towards hardware.
Yeah.
Right? Because I mean, we need server farms for days. You know what I mean? We need data warehouses for days. We need, whether it's Bitcoin mining or whether it's AI, we need compute for days. You know what I mean?
We all need to become nuclear physicists.
Well, you know,
We'll
you know what's interesting, or really, I mean, even on the right. I'm just thinking of the science just gave me hives. But or electricians.
Yeah.
Electricians
100%.
are going to be highly, highly paid.
Yep.
Learn how to install fiber.
Yep.
Right? It's huge.
Yep.
Yeah.
Learn how to do HVAC. We need cooling.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
All of these things, which I think is really kind of cool.
It is.
Forget put on pump. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm here for it.
What do you think? I love your take about, you shouldn't learn computer science. I feel that the skill that is going to be most important is architecture. And if a founder or an entrepreneur can think about architecting the business, architecting the technology, I feel like it's going to be more, agents doing this and agents doing that, and more looking at the overall blueprints, understanding what type of materials fit here, how do we position this against this regulation, just like building a house or something.
Yeah.
Because now I'm seeing so many teams just run, like 80% of their company with some type of AI integration or agents that they're building, and they're more just architecting, calling the shots, and orchestrating.
Well,
what do you think of that?
So yes, and I've put money on that. We've invested in a company that is focused on MCP servers.
Yep.
And for folks who don't know, MPC servers are kind of like the easiest way to explain it, which is the only way that I can explain it, in full disclosure, it's like Zapier, right? So you've got a whole bunch of apps, and they need to talk to each other and do stuff and plug in, or you got APIs, this, that, and the other, and you just want it to work, right? I want to be able for you to hit my landing page, enter your email address, that email address to then trigger an email to you, also put you into a sequence, and then also give you offers and ensure that you're able to buy stuff, right? Like just dumbing it down super simple, right? So now you've got all these AI agents that are built on an LLM layer that are doing things for you, and there's going to be tons of them. Everything that you've got that's an app right now is going to turn into an AI agent of some sort. Plus, you've got the ability to create your own. Like I've got literally 40 ChatGPT agents. I've got a couple through Claude. You know what I mean? Like we've all got this thing. So MCP servers are what allow all of those things to talk to each other in a same plug and play kind of way. Also, the beauty there is that you can now derive context. Like context is like the next elevation of where you're going with this stuff, where, okay, it's great that all these things connect, but how do I add a context layer? So if we were using that same example of someone hitting a website, opting in, getting on the email list, like now I also want to enrich that data with whatever, Info USA-ish Zoom info type thing I've got over here, which lets me know that, oh, Chris hit it. He's at this age. He's, having these kinds of transitions in his life. So it means these products would be interesting. So now I've got context around Chris, which I've added, which creates value for me as an asset for me to do the thing that I want to do. So to your point, MCP servers are going to do a lot of that. Definitely. But this happens at a DevOps level. This is like, you have to have an understanding. This is why I say English and logic. English and logic. If you can logically understand the flow of a customer journey or the flow of a workflow in an organization where it's like, I have a job to be done. And this is one of the things that I find most fascinating about this. Right now we have jobs to be done. Right? If you've got a podcast, you've got to take that podcast, you got to send it into post-production, you've got to then do something with the audio, you got to then do something with the video, you then have to parse it into things that you've got snippets, you got to do all this stuff. That is your workflow, right? This is the way that we're doing it because this is the way it's always been done. Everything that I just described is exactly how a radio show was done in 1910. It's exactly how a television program was done in 1950. You know what I mean? None of that has changed. It's a very linear model because the tech didn't allow you to. I mean, you had tape back then that you were literally splicing and taping back together, right? Wow. So imagine having
crazy.
the
That was
logic.
not that far ago, long ago.
Not that far, and how far have we come? We just digitized what was an analog process in the same kind of chronology, right? So now think of the world being your oyster, where you could instead take this interview and maybe chronologically it doesn't flow so well. Or maybe something just really interesting about MC servers came out in like the news. And so you want to lead with this segment of the conversation. You could have like AI just move and juxtapose and do all kinds of things in a way that we've never done before. Well, if I have the logic to understand the workflow of, Reefside's production engineer, then I can afford this MC server thing to have context and do things that are really, really cool, which, because of my logical approach to it, could differ than somebody who's over at, Podcast 101 doing their thing. And that's where you add more value. That's where you create a true asset. Then this also informs your own narrow language model where you've got, you're training that model on how does Reefside get down on their I just think all of that stuff is so cool. And not one iota of it requires me to have to code.
Yeah.
It's prompting. So if people know that these tools are at your disposal and that you've got this powerhouse thing. And here's the other beauty. Like I say this on stages all the time, where there are folks who are like, worried about ChatGPT taking over the world or taking over their job at least first. First job. We're always self-concerned first. Like, take my paycheck and then take over the world, right? But the idea being that, like, if you don't know how to use it, go get the free version and ask it. What can I do with you? I keep hearing you've got lots of skills. Give me some idea. I've done this just like joking to play around. You get really cool stuff.
You do. We do.
It's
amazing.
It's amazing. Truly. I think we're living in such a powerful time to start a company, such a really challenging time to be an investor in tech.
Why? Tell me more.
Because the rapidity of change is so fast. How do you place your bets? Like, unless you have deep pockets and you can invest in an OpenAI or in an Anthropic or something that is at the source layer,
right?
How are you possibly investing in an agent that sits on the source layer? You know what I mean? There are people who come to me with with ideas that they're great. It's wonderful. And I could cook this up at home over a weekend. There's no barrier to entry. There's zero defensible. You know what I mean?
That application layer is very shaky.
It is.
Because it's getting eaten up by each one of these like major players at least every update.
And how often are we updating? Like every 6 weeks?
Every 6 weeks. Maybe at least every quarter.
At least.
Yeah.
At least.
Very fast.
So it's what's interesting, and I mean, I know there's tons of other stuff you can invest in. I think blockchain is super interesting. Super interesting. Web3 and blockchain, I think, especially coupled with AI, very, very sexy industry that I'm learning more about and getting more interested in. Some of the applications that can be made to things like pharma, where you're really dealing with a data set that is owned by the company already. And so really your application to insights, whether it's medical affairs or commercialization, whatever it might be, in a really already adjacent technology knowledge base could be very interesting. I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff happening in web security. That's, I cut my teeth on web security. That's where I was a CRO twice. I am not technically proficient in web security. I'm technically proficient enough to be savvy enough to, personally, but really tough market to build, penetration testing. And there's always going to be, black hats. So it's important for you to have some kind of defensibility to the extent that you can, some kind of risk management. So I think there's some really interesting industries burgeoning. And then there's also, okay, so here's the other thing that I'll say in that vein. When I say hard as an investor, hard as a venture investor. I mean, if you can bootstrap, this is the other thing, buried entry, like down to here. You know what I mean? You can just go nuts with very little money and build a really economically viable company.
You're getting to kind of the heart of where this conversation is naturally going, where what's happening at early stage, where these different types of conversation around, should I be bootstrapping? Yeah. Should I just take one round, C-strapping? Should I actively continue to try to grow as fast as possible, knowing that if I do not grow, just normal route, if I do not grow as fast as possible, I'm going to get eaten up. Yeah. And I have to pivot along the way to make sure that I avoid clear areas where it doesn't make sense to do so. What do you feel we currently are as an industry when it comes specifically to this early stage for the founder side with that respectively? And then and let me ask a better question. Is it that so many things are changing for company building that is forcing investors to have to change, or are investors, because they know what currently exists, are imposing certain changes upon founders? How do you feel the dynamic is shifting and changing?
Okay, let me take the first question, and then you may have to remind me of the second one.
Okay. I did throw a lot in there.
That's okay. I've limited my sponges. It's not very big. So here's my thought. I look at it this way. First off, when founders will ask this question often, should I raise and should I bootstrap? And what if I can't bootstrap? And there are certain communities where it's the friends and family $250,000 round just doesn't exist. I ain't got friends and family with $250,000 ain't gonna happen. You know what I mean? It's reality, right? 98% of the country doesn't have that. You know what I mean? So here's what I always say. I say, what are you building? What do you, going back to the whole journaling thing, right? You don't have to journal this, but you have to know what your end game is. And your end game needs to be associated with the lifestyle you want to live, right? I have bootstrapped 2 startups. I have venture funded 1 startup. I've been a part of 3 venture funded startups, and I know what they all feel like. I am the type of person, I am a terrible employee, which is one of the reasons that I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. Luckily, I've been able to, sometimes not able to, but still rode that horse anyway. It's I didn't get no job. But what I know is that I like freedom. I like being able to make my own decisions. I like being able to pivot on a dime and not necessarily pivot a product, but pivot towards something that I find interesting, where it's ooh, there's a lane over there that I just want to go dabble in. I don't want to have a board of directors. I have to come back and go, so what I'm thinking is directionally in Q4 of 2026, we want to move the ship. I don't want to do all that, right? I also don't want investor updates. I don't want to send investor updates every month because no one's ever going to invest in Hillman again. But I don't want to do, you know what I mean? Because so much of it, I get them. And there's just so much fluff. And it's how do I make it look like something happened different than the month before? Blah, blah, blah. We still got Erick in the pipeline. Should be closing. Q2's really? I don't know. You've been saying that for 6 months now, man. Don't you have anything new? I don't want that kind of scrutiny. And I also don't need to run a public company. So the whole idea of venture, right? It's this little ecosystem, right? You've got you bootstrap yourself, whether that's your own money or you get your friends and family around, and then you get some VC at seed, and then you get some VC at B that's a little bigger, and then or maybe this one follows on, and then you get some C, and then something acquires you which might be PE, or then you get to a D or an E and you go public, and then the public has acquired you. You're in the public markets, but if you're over here, then they build you for 5 or 7 years, and then a bigger private equity comes along. It's it's a shell game of capitalism. I mean this. It truly is. It's a beautiful thing. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it also is terrifying when you really look at the fragile house of cards that this stuff is built on, right? I mean, you saw that with in 2008 with the mortgage crisis. But at any rate, you have to determine as a founder what kind of life you want to lead. Do you want to be flush with money and able to make all the decisions you want to make because you are just dead set around getting to some sort of an exit, and you think that your time to do so is a window that is potentially collapsing, and therefore I need external funds to be able to get there from an R&D perspective or a marketing perspective, and this is the life I want to live, and I'm totally beholden to that, and I understand the accountability that are associated with it, then go for it. There is money out there. I don't like to look at macros because I think people get lost in the macro picture and don't realize you don't need 1,000 VCs to invest in you.
Yeah.
You need 4. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just dispel the myths.
Okay.
I don't like buying into it. I don't like even buying into the narratives with respect to, and this is just my own blind optimism. It's the only way I can operate. I can't think that like women and minority founders just have a harder time. It's true. I know it's true. But I also know I can help you navigate to the 3 people who will give you some money. And if 35,000 don't invest in you or even just will never and don't want to, fine, let's go find the 3 that will. Like, let's just accept it and keep it moving. You know what I mean? I don't mean to dismiss it. I'm just saying, like, this is my worldview so that I can execute. So back to your point, what does this mean for early stage? I look at it from the vantage point of I've lived enough life on this earth that I remember when the .com, not the bubble, but when the .com boom was happening. This is when I moved to San Francisco.
Okay.
And it was the first time that a whole bunch of 22-year-olds were hatching crazy ideas, and VCs were like, give it the money, give it the money, give it the money, because it was such a cataclysmic movement towards the internet, and they all wanted in. And they're all placing bets, dumb bets. Like, what is the pets.com thing or whatever?
Perfect example.
Perfect example, right? So I was in there and I was riding it and I was doing this thing and I had friends that were like building these companies that were doing nothing material, making nothing substantial, this, that, and the other. And then of course, we know what happened with that. But I say this to say that prior to that...
Can you tell us what you were building?
What I was building at the time? I was working for, I was in web security at the time. I was not part of the .com boom. I was actually on the other side of it where we were securing sites.
Picks and shovels, way to go.
Yeah.
Great spot.
Always. That's the story of my life. Always picks and shovels. I mean, even my go-to-market strategy firm Closed Loop, it's picks and shovels. Like the market's doing this, it's like, well, you want to grow, don't you? The market's doing this, it's like, well, you don't want to die, do you? It's like, you know, I've built my life on that. So the idea being that this was the first time that super young people were getting tons of money from VC to build companies super fast because you could get a hockey stick trajectory. You could, within 2 to 3 years, you know, for better or worse, have a massive exit of a company, right? Prior to that, all business in this country took place with like incremental growth, right? So if the pendulum has swung back that way to a certain degree, where you get to build a company, but for you to get to 100 million might take you 10 years, it's kind of cyclical in my mind.
Yeah.
Unless you are building something that, to your point, is, you know, at that foundational layer of engineering, or unless you've built something that just has outsized growth potential because you have capitalized on a market and built a moat from a marketing perspective. You know what I mean? But you can be intentional about that. So the long and short of it is that I think that you have to understand what type of a company you want to run and what kind of executive you want to be in 5 years. When you decide where you're going, how you're going to resource your company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I see that very evidently. Even just last week, we had 2 workshops. One was on fundraising, one was on sales. They were both led by 2 local companies. One is a fundraising AI platform for fundraising. One is a AI agents, lead generation agents.
Okay.
And the AI agent company, that founder previously was a agency owner, built agencies, cash flow businesses, never took a dollar, venture bootstrap founder. And he is so maniacally focused on just blocking and tackling, revenue coming in the door. The fundraising thing, he's like, we might raise, I don't know, I can't even think about that. We're trying to get sales. We're growing sales. And they're both same stage. They're both tracking towards 500K ARR. And then the other platform, the fundraising platform, they're like, huge swing, raising, you know, just doing the traditional ladder. It's all about growth, monetization, not as important, but like we're taking the huge swing, the venture swing. And I'm like, wow, 2 founders, same stage, similar technologies, just different verticals, and just the founder mindset are kind of what they envision for that. Completely different, and you know, I don't know which one's right, but it's right for them, whatever they're doing.
That's it. Absolutely right. Exactly. And I think that in our community, I think that it is probably more realistic, unless you're going to move your business, to really focus on becoming revenue generating, or at least generating traction. It doesn't even have to be dollars. Like if you could prove out
what's traction.
So it could be, yeah.
What's traction? Every time.
You know? So depending upon what you're building, traction could be users. Yeah. Traction could be that you have a number of betas with substantial companies that are referenceable as logos that you have an opportunity to land and expand in. Like there's some markets where you're not going to have 100 customers because the market's just not that, well, the TAM might be big, but the number of companies aren't that large. Right. But if you can get the pillars of those companies, I'm doing this with a pharma investment right now, right? Pharma's not huge. Yeah. You know, there's like maybe 25, 30 companies worldwide that you really want to get into, but once you're in like the opportunities for expansion are insane. So we're slaying the first two and showing traction, and then traction meaning like, okay, we got pilot in, we then were able to convert that into a full year, a full annual subscription model, and then we're proliferating through other therapeutic areas, right? So that's the idea of what traction looks like, and this founder is specifically, you know, seeking another raise, definitely on the path towards IPO, but that's, you know, so traction. Here's the other beauty about traction, though, right? Like, it's so interesting when people are like, "What do you like to see in a deck?" I'm like, I can tell you what I like to see in a deck, but what I most like to see in a deck is confidence. And what I mean by that is like, you can tell your own story. When I'm advising founders, I'm like, what is the defensible narrative that we've got going into the next round? Yep. Like, what do we want that to be? Because you can tell your own story almost kind of like in hindsight, at least early rounds. You know what I mean? Good point. Yeah. So if you're like, I don't think I'm going to get to 1 million ARR. However, I think that I can demonstrate 1,000 users, and I can demonstrate 1,000 daily active users doing 5 to 6 things in here. And I could also get qualitative feedback and testimonials where people say, please don't take away my Hillman tech. Like, that's really compelling. And if that's what you're saying is your trajectory, and you can defend it confidently, investors will get on board with that. They might say, well, what about revenue? You go, well, we were focusing on traction first. We were focusing on product market fit and ensuring that we just serviced our first 5 customers in a way where they just wouldn't let us go. Well, that makes a lot of sense. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean?
It's true. Yeah. Definitely. And then also the story, what I'm seeing with some of these breakout AI companies like Lovable and stuff like that is the churn is just out of control, but they're selling top line users, top line signups, top line stuff. And it's like, okay, if you have a 75% month over month churn, like how does that work? But it doesn't matter because they're playing a different game. They're selling that different story.
It's one of those things that where it will catch up to you though. I remember, I won't say the name of the company, but an advertising analytics company based in San Francisco was a client many years ago, and I was working on the revenue side, and we were slaying logos left and right, working, meaning advising them on the revenue side, slaying logos. And then the CRO went to a board meeting, he calls me up and he goes, I got a problem. I'm like, what? He goes, the board has basically said that if we don't fix our churn problem, that they will not follow on invest because we're basically a hole in the bucket. And if we can't retain customers, we will quickly run out of new ones that we can add.
So many.
So we got to work on product and like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, that sounds like a big problem. It's like, go have fun with that. You know what I mean? Yeah. But no, to your point, and I mean, it's easier to love the one you're with. Yeah. You know what I mean? I always say that. It's like, you don't just sell and go away. Like the revenue process is like, okay, then you get to customer success, and it's like, now you got to transition into retention, and hopefully you've got some upsell opportunities and some cross-sell opportunities or some expansion, something. You know what I mean? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. That's key.
Well, I think we have one last question for you. We've been asking everyone on the show. You've obviously been in different ecosystems, San Francisco, now Miami, and committed to really building out that more community-driven and holistic tech ecosystem here. What do you think is needed to make the next step change in Miami or South Florida's kind of tech evolution?
Wow. What is needed?
It could be a person, organization,
I'll tell you what's needed.
Anything.
I'll tell you what's needed. And this is really what the source is all about. And this is what, we host this Spark competition, which is the Startup Pitch Accelerator Regional Competition. The whole idea behind it is not to be source-centric, meaning, the source-centric. It is to create a big tent of collaboration that is South Florida focused. That is the whole focus. And I've said this to community partners, of which you two are a big part. The goal was, and this is my selfish intent, I wanted to be able to ensure that everybody kind of knew that we were available as a resource, that we were available, whether that's expertise, whether that's a funding resource, whether that's a community resource, whatever it was, because I thought that in doing so, that would allow us a greater opportunity for expansion and a greater opportunity to contribute. So I say all this to say that the one word I would say is most critical for South Florida's tech ecosystem going forward is collaboration. We need to be intentional about collaboration at the university and academic level. We need to be intentional about collaboration at the political leadership and community leadership level. We need to be intentional about collaboration at the level of all of our hubs of communities, whether it's an AI hub, whether it's a tech hub happening somewhere, whether it's a workspace, a co-working space. We need to really understand what's available, support each other in that construct, and have constant conversations so that we can kind of proliferate. Because you can't come up through one silo.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way. You need, it's like this, it's the whole tried saying of like, it takes a village. Well, we need to be that village. And it's great that we all know each other exist, but we need to really be working together.
Yep.
And I think that rising tide floats all boats.
Yep. I completely agree. And in a way, I think any like type of competition on like a different community groups, right? There's 2 AI groups that like to do meetups or things like that. It's like, hey, we all want this to work out. You don't have to, fight
There's no
for
scarcity.
this. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's all going to grow. If it all grows, everyone wins and everyone can, really like live in the place that they want to. I think that's where a lot of the people we've had on the show come from, is they're like, I love Miami. I love technology. I love startups, and I want to continue this, to live in this place, and I want it to grow. So it's something that I can really, be fulfilled in.
I want to add one thing too, because one thing that surprises people when I share this, and I've done a lot of ecosystems, even worldwide, like Istanbul as well. The amount of collaboration at the level of the founder is distinctly different than here. I've never, until I moved here, heard a founder say, can you sign this NDA before I share this thing? Or what if somebody steals my idea? Just doesn't happen. I mean, you first of all have to understand there's a collective consciousness and there's more than one person working on the same thing you are. It's all about execution. Like your idea ain't that special. It may feel special.
It's not.
But it ain't. Somebody's working on it. You know what I mean? So even at that level, I think it's super critical that we all just kind of realize like there is no scarcity of ideas, of resources, of any of the things that are necessary to make an ecosystem hum.
Yep. I love that collaboration.
Let's do
it.
That's my word.
Well, Hillman, where can people find you? Where's the best place for people to reach out?
Oh man, I'm somewhere everywhere. But you could definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
That's probably best. Connect with me there and shoot me a note, and come by the office. We're right downtown at First and Flagler, and I'm at tons of events all the time, and I think I'm fairly accessible, right?
You do a good job.
I try.
Definitely.
But we're here, also go to thesourcegroups.com, and you can see some of the things that we're up to. You can always tap into a Tech Tuesdays, which we do every Tuesday. Every other Tuesday at the Center for Black Innovation. Everyone's welcome. The beauty of that thing is it doesn't matter where you are on your tech journey. You are welcome to come and ask questions and learn from experts. The goal is this is supposed to be an on-ramp for particularly the community that is keep reading about tech, but I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means for me. And then we bring in the people who know all about what it means to have an audience and be able to share and impart their wisdom, their expertise, their network, and their community as well.
I had a good time that other Tuesday.
Yeah, you killed it. It was great. We get Chris in there too.
I know, we got to get
Chris.
we got to get Chris in there for
Next
sure.
Tuesday, I'm there.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Hillman, I want to thank you so much for encouraging everybody to go into English. And if you guys didn't know, Logic is really exclusively only taught in the major of philosophy. That's my old one.
That's it.
English and philosophy. That's what we're producing today. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks for having me. This is great. I love all the work you guys are doing.
Oh yeah, and we really want to continue to push forward that idea of collaboration and density, as you put earlier, because that's what this is all about in Miami. So
love it.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Man.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. That's it. That's
Good to see you,
the pod.
That's the pod.